Observe this spectacle unfolding in every corner of existence, where countless bodies drift along avenues, their eyes wide and vacant, as though life had slipped out of them unnoticed. Witness the pantomime they perform so earnestly, gestures repeated with mechanical devotion, voices parroting borrowed convictions, faces carved into masks that have forgotten what it means to feel something genuine. If you had the audacity to peer behind those hollow gazes, you would discover an expanse of sterile quiet, a forsaken landscape where once there pulsed the boldness of an unchained thought. It is here in this stillness that the true catastrophe reveals itself, an invisible erosion more corrosive than any plague of flesh. People have come to dread silence as though it were a predator, to crave a ceaseless tide of noise that drowns the last fragile echoes of their own inner voices. Observe how their hands tremble when the screens go dark, how their breath quickens when no signal arrives to rescue them from their own reflection. They do not merely hunger for distraction, they depend on it as the last reassurance that they exist at all. And in that dependence grows a more insidious decay. The soul evaporates by imperceptible increments until all that remains is the flickering illusion of selfhood, propped up by algorithms that measure their every impulse, that refine their cravings until each desire fits perfectly within a marketable pattern. They have become commodities in a transaction they pretend not to notice. Their attention is siphoned off in microscopic installments, every glance and every sigh converted into a currency that buys nothing of substance. You may believe yourself immune, convinced that your intellect erects a rampart no manipulation can breach, but this is the sweetest delusion of all, the belief that you can swim in poisoned waters and emerge untainted. Even the fiercest mind dulls when it is bathed in endless triviality, when each instant is colonized by the compulsion to check, to scroll, to consume. The self grows thin, translucent, an outline instead of a presence. Have you ever wondered why your heart beats faster as you wait for the next notification? Why you feel a tremor of panic when you contemplate turning it all off? It is because the machinery has already threaded itself through your nervous system, training you with its meticulous rewards and punishments. You are not merely entertained, you are conditioned. And this conditioning thrives not on ignorance in its old, blunt form, but on excess. No one needs to burn books anymore, nor shutter libraries. All that is required is an unending deluge of content so shallow it cannot nourish anything within you. Knowledge is paraded before you like a banquet, but when you reach out to taste it, your fingers close on air. What masquerades as enlightenment is merely a carnival of slogans and simplified certainties, a masquerade that demands no effort, no sacrifice of comfort. And all the while, your own hunger for meaning is anesthetized. You feel it sometimes, a twinge in the gut, a whisper that something vital has slipped from your grasp. But before you can name this loss, 1,000 new amusements descend to smother it. The system has no need to forbid thinking. It merely ensures you never have the time or stillness to attempt it. Imagine your mind as a terrain once lush and fecund, alive with the flowering of insight. Each headline, each manufactured controversy, each shallow distraction is a seed of weed scattered across this soil. One by one, they do not seem dangerous, but let them sprout unchallenged, and they will strangle everything that once grew there. Soon you will find yourself reciting opinions you never tested, defending ideas you never explored, and feeling nothing but a vague unease you cannot trace to its source. If you are honest with yourself, you have sensed this erosion. You have felt the dread of solitude, the ache of an attention span fractured into fragments too small to hold any real perception. You have glimpsed the void that expands when you cease to think. At first, it seems a passing discomfort, an ache that can be dulled with a flicker of novelty. But the more you ignore it, the more it becomes a cavern, swallowing your vitality, your curiosity, your ability to wonder. So many have already crossed that threshold without realizing it. exchanging the spark of authenticity for a simulation of aliveness. They shuffle through days that all taste the same, their gestures perfect replicas of each other's, their passions as prefabricated as the advertisements they consume. Their hearts beat, but without conviction. Their words fill the air but never illuminate it. Ask yourself if you wish to join them. Consider whether you will surrender the last embers of your singularity, or whether you will reclaim what remains of you. Because behind the seduction of convenience stands an entire apparatus whose purpose is to grind your awareness into a commodity. Every heartbeat, every blink, every moment you surrender to automatic behavior is captured, quantified, packaged for resale. They have perfected the science of your distraction. They have woven the currency of your attention into the architecture of your life so thoroughly that you cannot distinguish your cravings from their inducements. This is why the glow of your screen feels like belonging. Why you mistake the surge of dopamine for the touch of meaning. The more you feed this habit, the more you become a creature of reflex instead of reflection. Perhaps you imagine that simply knowing this is enough to save you. But recognition alone does not confer immunity. Even your determination to resist is corroded by saturation. You have tried to put the device aside, only to feel the itch in your palms, the restless anxiety in your chest. You have tasted the peculiar emptiness that swells in the absence of stimulus, and you have fled back into the noise, promising yourself that you will try again tomorrow. What you do not realize is that this cycle is precisely the point, to train you to equate discomfort with failure, to make you believe that the friction of silence is an unnatural agony rather than the first proof of awakening. They have taught you to scorn reflection as a waste of time, to fear the wilderness of your own mind as though it harbored monsters too awful to confront. But it is only in that wilderness, in the raw terrain of your own unmediated awareness, that you will find the seeds of freedom. It is there in the hush, after all the noise has receded, that your thoughts can stretch and take form uncoerced. It is there that you discover whether anything in you remains uncolonized. They have convinced you that to be informed is to be awake, but information alone is a husk. Wisdom requires the courage to dwell with your questions, to resist the narcotic of premature certainty. Wisdom is not the sum of data, but the slow distillation of understanding that no algorithm can supply. When did you last allow a doubt to mature within you, to grow into a question too large for a simple answer? When did you last remain in that tension without fleeing to the comfort of a ready-made opinion? In a world drunk on speed, the patience of contemplation is branded as weakness. They will tell you that you are wasting time, that you are falling behind. But behind what? Behind the race to nowhere, the contest to see who can surrender their curiosity most completely? The quiet you feel when you step outside this current is not emptiness. It is the first taste of sovereignty. Look around you and consider this paradox. Never have we had such vast access to information, and never have we been so incapable of transforming it into understanding. We have grown so accustomed to immediate gratification that any nuance feels like an affront, any complexity a burden. And in this shallow pool, our minds are left to wither. If you still harbor some sliver of uncorrupted awareness, allow yourself to feel this discomfort. Let it bloom instead of stifling it. It is not your enemy. It is your last proof that you are still something more than a sequence of programmed responses. If you do nothing, if you go on surrendering each day to the rituals of distraction, you will wake to discover you have become another interchangeable actor in this silent pageant of obedience. Picture for a moment a city at dusk, its buildings glowing with 1,000 identical lights. Through each window, you see the same posture of quiet desperation, the same eyes pleading for a flicker of acknowledgement. You see lives indistinguishable from one another, performed with mechanical devotion. This is not a nightmare conjured to frighten you. It is the reality we have allowed to flourish, one compromise at a time. Every instance you traded reflection for spectacle. Every moment you chose the comfort of conformity over the rawness of doubt, you contributed to this architecture of emptiness. Each time you refused to question, you ceded a little more ground until nothing remained but the echo of other people's convictions. And make no mistake, this collective void is contagious. Every mind that falls silent becomes a vector, transmitting apathy like an airborne virus. When you no longer think, you become a vessel for any deception dressed in the costume of consensus. It does not matter if it is a lie, as long as it soothes your fear of the abyss. Perhaps you feel the chill even now, the unmistakable shiver of a consciousness forced to confront its own fragility. None of us is beyond the reach of this corruption. Even now, the temptation to surrender whispers to you, to drift back into the warm fog of consensus, to become another docile mechanism spinning in a machine too vast to comprehend. But you are not required to comply. You may instead choose the solitude of lucidity, the discomfort of integrity. No one can promise you it will be easy. You will lose the consolations of belonging. You will be called arrogant, aloof, and difficult. Let them say it. Their judgment is the price of seeing clearly. Because when you dare to inhabit your own perception, you acquire something they can never counterfeit: the capacity to witness the world without succumbing to it, the courage to question even when no one applauds, the resilience to feel fully even when the surrounding hearts have grown numb. Ask yourself each night if you have thought one thought that was not implanted, felt one feeling not purchased. If you can answer yes even once, you have reclaimed a piece of yourself. And in a civilization engineered to flatten every distinction, that act is a quiet revolution. If this reflection has stirred something restless inside you, do not rush to bury it under fresh distractions. Honor it as a sign that you remain unfinished, unextinguished, that some chamber within you still houses an ember untouched by the contagion. In that ember lives your only real wealth, the ability to discern, to resist, to begin again. Close your eyes. Listen to your breath unaccompanied by any prompt or melody. Feel the stillness in which no one's narrative intrudes. This is the terrain they have tried to seal away from you, the place where your most authentic thoughts grow. Remember this: the deeper you dare to look into the apparent void, the more you will discover it is not empty at all. It is alive with all you have been too afraid to uncover. And in that awakening, you will finally learn that the only freedom worth claiming is the one no system can confer and no market can exploit. Close your eyes and feel the hush that follows when all noise recedes, the peculiar gravity of your own unmediated thoughts. This silence is not a punishment, but an invitation, a doorway into the part of you no algorithm has mapped. Here, in the raw territory beyond distraction, you glimpse what it means to belong wholly to yourself. Hold that awareness even if it trembles, because in a world that rewards your absence from yourself, the simple act of staying awake is the most defiant kind of grace.